Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, the Habs fall just short in a shootout in Tampa Bay, but that might not be a bad thing.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1023 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. We are, of course, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day, wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you're watching us on youtube.com as well. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. I'm joined, as always, by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, we usually hate when the Habs go to Florida because it's stupid and bad and they never win or never look good or anything like that. And so far, as they wrap up this trip to the worst state in America, not bad at all things
Not
considered.
not bad at all. I beg to differ. There might be some other states that are worse. It's hard to. It's a tough competition.
It's a race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom. As you can see, our shining faces. It is early in the morning, and I am still feeling good about the Montreal Canadiens road trip to Florida.
And sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I expected abject disaster, and there were some shenanigans, Scott. Let's be honest, there were some. I'm not opening the door to another rant for you, but I felt that overall they held their own. And Tampa's always a team that it to other people it is like one of those teams that's like a perennial contender. To us, it is an extremely annoying pain in the butt. And they did okay.
And here's the thing about it is because the Florida game again, stuck with the Panthers. The Panthers are a very good team, and the Habs stuck with them in there, and they got good performances out of that game. And I know that we're talking about Tampa, but I had to miss the episode you did with Andrew Berkshire talking about this, but you got goals from key pieces in that game, pieces that you want to see scoring goals. Obviously, Slavkovsky had the big one there. They lose in a shootout. So, yeah, they still lost, didn't get both points, but they still probably got at least a point that they had deserved in that. And I know everyone's going to go, but the tank and this and that. And it's at a certain point, good performances do deserve some reward for that. Against Tampa, Canadiens took a 2-0 lead early in the first period. Yoel Armia scored a minute 27 into this game, which off an assist from Caden Gooley, which, by the way, we love that. Yoel Armia is up to 11 goals on the season, and I am really happy to see what he's done so far this year. He started the year in the AHL, remember, and that was is he even going to be worthwhile to keep on this team kind of situation?
Well, it was 2 years of he needs to be traded, right? It was 2 years of that.
And that's the thing is probably still should. And he is what I would consider a luxury player in this rebuild. If he were, let's say, $750,000 cheaper, I know that's not a small chunk of change. Maybe this changes a little bit, but I think he's been a really solid player basically since the Christmas holiday there. Jake Evans scores on an assist from Brendan Gallagher, makes it 2-0 in the first period. Tampa, of course, comes back, makes it 2-2 in the second. Josh Anderson tips in a Cole Caulfield shot. Finally, our long national nightmare is over. Josh Anderson has a goal again. And then the Habs with a power play midway through the third period with a chance to maybe put the game slightly out of reach at 4-2, because all things considered, Tampa didn't look super great in this game. They give up a shorthanded goal to Tyler Mott. Nick Suzuki is not happy with himself over that. Go to overtime, get through overtime, lose in a shootout. Caulfield scores, Stamkos scored. And I think the hardest thing about all of this is that Jesse Ylönen, again, great shootout move, gets robbed by this stick shaft of Andrei Vasilevsky. So they lose 4-3 in a shootout, and it's like almost even shots on goals. I haven't really looked at the natural stat trick for it because I stopped doing that during Habs games for a reason. And let's see here. It's about an even split. Again, more high danger chances, slightly more expected goals. At 5-on-5, the Habs weren't bad against a. I know Tampa is a far cry from what they used to be, but this is a Habs team that, got a lead, kind of lost control of the game, and then got it back. We've seen too often that when they've lost control in the past, it just goes careening over the edge. And I got to say, if you're going to lose a game where you were competitive the entire time. I will take, maybe not in shootouts. If they wanted to lose this game in regulation for whatever reason, I wouldn't be upset because we talk about building blocks. This is one of those games that just I really liked what I saw from the Canadiens, even in a loss overall on the night.
Excellent use of the word careening, by the way. And that is something where we have criticized them in the past, right? Because there was a good 15 to 20 stretch of games where they were only able to win the game or even come close if they were able to stay fully in control. Whereas now we're seeing them able to take back the game or at least not unravel to the point where it gets hopeless, right? And that's something that's really, really key. And I don't know if it's a behaviors thing, if it's a confidence thing, but it's a definite noticeable market change, right? Like that to me is the key here, is that it's consistent too. It's been like many games now where we're seeing this. We're gonna forget about that Arizona game. Everybody has bad habits. That's one of theirs that they're gonna have to deal with. But otherwise, they've been able to get it back together. They've been able to tighten up the play, like get back into the game, really take over in moments. And it's honestly like it's been really, really refreshing to see that they are capable of growth.
And I think that's it, is that and this is what makes that Arizona game this past week so frustrating for me, is that you played good in front of that and lost in games that weren't close. Then you played like crap and won. And then you played 2 games where you lost, but you played really well in that, and the score was close. And it's just like, is this a you took Arizona lightly thing? You're not taking them seriously? Is it this is a divisional rivalry kind of thing? Because the Habs in Tampa for years, basically going back to, I believe it was the 2014 playoffs there when they played in that, is they're competitive, they're feisty, they don't like each other, and Florida's becoming the same way as well. That is it just that little extra chip on your shoulder that I want to see less games like the Arizona one and more games like this. This is exactly what you want from a team that is rebuilding. Joshua Wild looks really good, has helped stabilize some of the offense there. The Canadiens' first line is continuing to be really, really good, even if they're not like Josh Anderson's goal did not come with Suzuki as part of that, package. It was a Jack Eye assist, a Caulfield assist. We're getting more points out of other players in this lineup. Newhook coming back, getting points. Yoel Armia, like we talked about, Jake Evans scoring goals now in that kind of 2.5 C role there. This is exactly what I want to see from the Montreal Canadiens a little bit. And I actually need to look up their schedule this week because I know it's not going to get any easier. They're the Predators on Tuesday. The Predators have won, I believe, 8 straight games. And then they play Carolina on Thursday, trade deadline, and then they play the Leafs on Saturday. That is not exactly a quiet week. You have one of the hottest teams in the league, one of your other boogeymen teams in the Hurricanes, and then you have the Leafs at home, too. I guess what we should do, too, before we move on is we should check in on the draft lottery. And with their 2 points collected in both shootout losses, the Habs have moved up, down to 7th in the draft lottery standings because Arizona beat Ottawa. Ottawa couldn't beat Arizona, and then Ottawa then got blown out in terms of quality by Philadelphia. So Ottawa sitting in 6th, Arizona is in 5th, and the Montreal Canadiens and Anton Siliev, based on Tankathon, have the Habs in 7th right now. I just want to get the points here. Let's see. Montreal has 56 points with 2 more games played than Ottawa. Ottawa has 53. Arizona has 53 with 60 games played. And then Columbus in fourth has 60 games played and 50 points. The race for the top 5 is far from over, and we're going to see what happens and what this team looks like in the trade deadline. Laura, did you have any parting thoughts?
Just how jammed up would you be if Ottawa got a better pick than the Montreal Canadiens? I guess, I mean, they're going to screw it up anyway, but still.
The rebuild will finally be over again. It's not as bad as the current draft lottery I just ran. That is Chicago 1, Pittsburgh 2, Montreal 3. I would love Montreal to move up to 3, but Pittsburgh doesn't deserve to have the second overall pick in this draft. And then the next one I ran is New Jersey won it. So I hate all of that. It's terrible and no thank you. It is Monday, which means we do jump into 3 up and 3 down. I just wanted to make sure we took a look at the draft lottery. We'll try and do that at the beginning and end of each week of games. But we have so much more to get into, and that's all coming up next. But first, you can get buckets with the fine folks at FanDuel Sportsbook because right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you're like me and maybe you're not sure, what should I look at if I want to, put some money on the NBA, you can go through the quick bet tab. You can look at the parlays tab and the Explore Hub and see what other folks on FanDuel are using right now and place your bets on there. There's exclusive props and so much more. And the best part is that when you win, you can cash out immediately on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. You just have to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot today with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and us here at Locked On. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. We are, of course, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast. You can check out Locked On Sports today if you want a 24/7 stream of all of our local experts on YouTube.com. That's Locked On Sports today. For those who might be new here, which welcome, and for those returning, we've gotten away from this a little bit in past weeks just because of the way the schedule has worked out and other things. We do 3 up and 3 down on every Monday where we take a look at the Habs, the league as a whole, and everything around it, and decide who's rising and who's falling this week. And for those who don't know a ton about me, I cover the Laval Rocket for Habs Eyes on the Prize as well. They are, kind of my niche away from the Canadiens for things. And I hate having to do this 2 weeks in a row. They had such a good game on Wednesday night again. An absolutely fantastic effort. Jakub Dobeš got his first professional shutout win. A huge deal for them. And then they followed up a solid performance on Friday night. Lost to the Hartford Wolfpack 2-1. Went down 2-0, battle back. Just couldn't get a bounce to go their way. Come in on Saturday, and they were dominating Springfield because I was watching that game while watching and clipping the Habs game. They ended the first period with a 26-7 shot advantage and then lost this game based purely on the fact that the young defensemen are having the worst kind of regression you could have at this point in the season. They have guys who are making mistakes that are up here, and it's costing them a lot. And for Justin Barron and Logan Mailloux, players that fans expect a lot more out of, and I think management is expecting a lot more out of to lead this team here, the growing pains are obvious. Mailloux is trying to do a lot, and Justin Barron, since being sent down, just doesn't look like the guy that was there last year or in the NHL last year. And the defensive struggles are going to be a problem for the Canadiens, I think.
And that's exactly it. It's that this defense has been such a weird question mark, not like throughout the organization, because it's not like they don't have good players. I think it's just that they don't have enough of the right kind of player, right? Whether it's position wise or it's like skill wise or even like, left-handed or versus right-handed D. And so like to have any of these rookies essentially or prospects struggling does not necessarily fill us with confidence. And I know it doesn't mean that it's permanent. It's just that there's just so many eyes focused on the idea of like, this defense needs work, this defense needs help, this defense needs an identity, a whatever. They need to be developed, that this kind of stuff is concerning.
And it's not just a point totals thing. I'm looking at Justin Barron's points on Elite Prospects right now. He has 8 points in 17 games, which isn't terrible. It's just that he doesn't look like an impact player on this Rocket team right now. I'm watching Hockey Sense things where he goes to clear a puck and he's just throwing it right to an opposing forward and it becomes a goal. A puck lands in his skates, and instead of, having any idea of what's going on, where he's watching the play coming towards him, he's kind of spinning, looking for it, and the defense is going around him. I'm not noticing him doing the things that I did last year, where there are great tape-to-tape passes and good, cross-seam plays. Everything is kind of regressing in a way that this is not working out. And for Logan Mailloux, I think part of this is just the learning curve, because he had Arbor Jack guy, and that kind of helped him get his head on right. And now he's trying to do a lot, and he's trying to do the hero puck thing, which is something that we've talked about. It's great that he wants to be the emphasis in an offense, but at the same time, you have to trust, the way the system is. You can't go wandering out to the point and then try to get back and not really put the effort fully into getting back. That one of your teammates, a forward, is covering your spot. The puck goes in because he's trying to cover a spot that is not his, because you were out of position. It's little things and it's little details. And that's what makes the difference between a prospect with talent and like an elite high level prospect. You have to work on all those factors in your game. And it's not just the defense for the Rocket. Like Jakub Dobish now without Kazimir Kaskisuo is doing a lot. But when the defense isn't really helping you out all that much, it's still a struggle. Like the team itself is putting up pretty good offensive numbers. Brandon Gignac got 43 points in 48 games. Philippe Maillet is 39 and 49. Xavier Simoneau has 35 in 49 games. Mailloux 34 and 54. Wah had 32 and 40 before he got called up. Lias Anderson 28 points in 36 games. Like, the offense is there. It's just getting the team dialed into where it needs to be. And that's part of a young franchise. And we were having this discussion are they a bad team? Is this a failed season? And I don't want to say it's a failed season, but it is a kind of frustrating thing when they've shown us, hey, this is how good we can be and where they're at now. And part of it is, maybe they expected Jaden Struble to be there longer. Maybe it was something else. But this is a team underperforming where it needs to be at, entering a really important part of their season, I guess. Like, there is a lot happening. The playoff hopes look a little bit faint, but we will see. They have another big week coming up again. Syracuse comes to town, and then I believe it's Toronto again. So,
Scott,
Laura,
here's a question. It seems to me that in the last few months, other than the Monahan trade, management has been pretty quiet. We haven't heard a whole lot from them. So I'm wondering, what are they working on behind the scenes? Obviously, they're listening to calls, they're making calls probably, but what are they working on? Like, are they keeping an eye on this stuff and sort of coming up with a strategy to improve things for next year? Because I think this year, like, there's still a lot of room and time to put some more, I want to say effort. It sounds like mean. I don't think they're lazy or anything like that, but it just feels like like they're not thinking hard enough about it, right? And that's what it feels like. Again, like, I have absolutely no idea. It just, from my perspective, it seems like they need to kind of pick things up. Like, do you think that maybe some of that strategy has fallen by the wayside in favor of the NHL team?
I think part of it is the injuries have again, and I know I don't want to blame injuries for everything because they're getting healthier a little bit. We're going to see the roster shuffle here. Raphael Harvey-Pinard is back practicing with the team. Jaden Struble's injury was not as serious. They're just being cautious, bringing him back. And then you have Michael Pezzetta as your extra forward there. Someone's going to have to go down to the Rocket at some point. And we're going to see with the trade deadline here what's going to happen. Who's going to go down? I assume both Struble and Wah will be put on paper waivers going down for that game. depending on how the trade deadline goes. Maybe they find an NHL defenseman and say, hey, we're going to put him in the lineup here. And Struble just goes back down to the AHL to play some of those big minutes. We know David Reinbacher's got the relegation series in the Swiss League. He's going to be coming into, and they're going to count him as, an acquisition for that AHL team. I think a lot of it is they're just kind of waiting on some of these younger guys. They want to give them the space to grow. They don't want to say, well, it's not performing, we're going to replace you with someone else right now and cut your minutes. Part of development is you go through the crappy parts of it where you're losing games and you're going through the frustrations. I would rather them give these kids that, I don't want to say a harsh reality, but like a learning situation, than punish them and not let them learn from anything and play safe, scared hockey. Let them go in a way that gives them the most opportunity to still be themselves and grow with that. I realized that this was only one down, but it was part of what we've
There's a lot of
about.
down.
But we've talked a lot about, like, is this how we want to develop players here? Because as Canadiens fans, we really didn't have over a decade of not really good player development. So this is something new, and time will tell if this was the right thing. It's still early on in this, but I like that they're not punishing young players. They're trying to get them to be the best they can be. We are going to wrap up with the up section of this because, we never want to end the show on a negative note, and that's all coming up next. But first, one of our other sponsors today is Game Time. And if you've ever tried to find last-minute tickets to concerts, wrestling shows, sporting events, comedy shows, plays, anything in your area, you know that it can be a nightmare, that you go in, you're not sure what tickets are going to be left. You get hit with the hidden fees where it says this much, then you end up paying this much in fees at checkout for seats that maybe you didn't even get to see what the view looks like, and you just bought them because they were the only things available. All a thing of the past, because with killer last minute deals, all in pricing, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. It is a lifesaver to be able to go in and be like, I have company coming into town and they want to go do something. Load up Game Time. I can take a look. I live in Buffalo. I can find Sabres tickets last minute, get great views for my seats, and pay less because there's no hidden fees in there. So just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Some terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Just download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we always want to end the show on a good note. So, Laura, February was actually a pretty good month for maybe not the Canadiens overall, but for Nick Suzuki
and Suzuki.
Yes, and that's exactly it, is that Nick Suzuki was outscored goals by one person in the NHL in February. That person was Austin Matthews, who is, one of the best goal scorers, if not the best goal scorer in the NHL right now. And my point to that is he also gets to play with a very good team around him. Nick Suzuki has like half an NHL line behind him and a bunch of guys. All due respect to said guys. It's really hard to not love what Nick Suzuki is doing this season at this point. Like, we're talking pacing over career highs at this point. I think he's only a few points off of, he's 7 points off his career best. And he's doing it with a team that is arguably worse around him than before.
Yes. Honestly, I don't even know how hyperbolic I can be with respect to how much I love Nick Suzuki and what he brings. We talked a lot with Andrew Berkshire, and you and I have talked about this too. Like, the way he approaches his game is he's always looking to improve himself, even with the little things. It's not just the big things. He's just always looking to, like, it feels like he's unflappable, right? Like, he's not down on himself. Like, what he does is like, what can I do? What can I learn to make me better at X, Y, or Z? I think he finally got, sick of being criticized for certain things. And then he just, I think he seems meticulous in that way, for for all respects of his game, but it just feels like every time like someone comes up with a knock on him, the only thing he can't change is get bigger. Like he can't get taller, right? But anytime someone comes up with something to be like, oh, like I don't like the way Nick Suzuki does this, or he doesn't do this enough, or whatever, within a few weeks or months or next season, you see him doing it and doing it well. Like he has no chill when it comes to his game. He's all chill when he's on the ice, and he has no chill when it comes to his own self-improvement.
And that's the thing is that he is someone that I'm watching him when he plays. He takes mistakes he makes personally. Like we've talked about how hard he is on himself because that's the kind of player he is. He had the turnover that led to Tyler Mott's shorthanded goal against Tampa. The next shift he goes out there and it sounded like he put a dent in the crossbar with how hard he put that shot on there. He takes
like
everything.
He just responds to it by trying to fix it and be better.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like he's getting better and better and better at that. Yeah, 59 points in 61 games. People are gonna look like, that's not great. It's like there's one regular line and then a bunch of rotating behind that because Kirby Dach played a game and a quarter this year. Like it's really hard for me to not just love seeing that from him. Basically, since that playoff run to the Stanley Cup Finals, Nick Suzuki has been, and he's been good since he got here. Let's be honest. The COVID year, 7 points in 10 playoff games, 41 points in 71 games on a Canadiens team that was still struggling a little bit. He just keeps getting better. And as they add more talent around their actual centers, that he doesn't have to kill all the penalties and take all the 5-on-5 defensive zone minutes and everything, and maybe a power play that functions regularly, the sky's the limit. Elite Prospects projects him just shy of 80 points, 79 points in 82 games. 50 assists is not out of the question. There's 21 games left this season. 30 goals, not out of the question. Sky's the limit for that. And that goes for Cole Caulfield with him as well. Caulfield's just shy of 20 goals, just shy of 30 assists, which didn't expect Caulfield the playmaker this season at all. So it's hard to not, with all the other bad stuff going on, to not praise what Nick Suzuki is doing would be unfair of us completely.
I absolutely agree. Like I have, I'm wholeheartedly on the Nick Suzuki bandwagon fan club, stan club, whatever we call them. We need a name for that. But yes, I'm 100% behind it. And this is the thing. It's like, people always talk about, well, Nick Suzuki isn't like a Connor McDavid. He isn't like a this or a that. And I'm like, calm down. Not every team in the NHL can have that. For me, like Nick Suzuki is the person on the Montreal Canadiens that I can always rely on, never to take a step back.
And that's the thing is, he's been quiet for a little bit. He's been doing this. He's been doing that. He's still doing everything else. Like,
yeah. And then you look at the underlying numbers and they're like phenomenal. Like
he's a Selke worthy player this season, whether people want to admit it or not, because he plays on a bad team. People are going to look at that and go, I don't know. You should know at this point. I also want to give a shout out to PWHL Montreal. Melody Daou hasn't played a hockey game in over a year, came back in and immediately played on the top line with Marie-Philippe Poulin and looked like she hadn't lost a step or missed a day in her life. PWHL Montreal currently leads the PWHL league. They are in first place overall. Again, if you haven't had a chance to tune in and watch, I am begging you to do so. The intensity is there, the passion is there, and you get to watch quite possibly one of the greatest hockey players of our generation, not, just greatest women's hockey player, one of the greatest hockey players of our generation, captain the Montreal team. And they are fantastic, free on YouTube. Go watch a game in Verdun if they are there. I can't not shout it out just because they are always something I have on when there are games on to watch. The league itself has been fantastic. Please go check that out, regardless of what team you're supporting. Laura, did you have anything else to add for the up section this week?
Not really. I think overall the team played better after the Arizona game, so that was just generally my observation. And Slavkovsky continues to have a fantastic time of it.
His awareness and everything is just so much better than where it was at last year. He's up to 31 points in 61 games this year. I imagine they'll keep him on that line, but we know he could play well with Kirby Dach as well next season when that time comes. Projected for 41 points, just shy of 21 goals on Elite Prospects. We'll see how the end of the season goes. He might go on a heater again. Coming up later on this week, I do want to talk a little bit about the whole Rempe, Arbor Jackeye, so many things with that I want to talk about because it is the biggest story. The Habs and Rangers do have another game coming up. The Habs and Leafs play this weekend, which means Reeves versus Jackeye 2 again. There's so much that I want to get into this because there's a lot of layers to it that I think we really need to be paid attention to, and I couldn't find the time for it in this one. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com for your longer questions. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick, and you can follow myself at Scott Matla. Subscribe wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. That'll do it for us, folks. We will see you all next time.